Thank you to Chexy for sponsoring this episode. Chexy helps you get credit card points on your rent or cash back. Click the first link down below in the description. Chexy, thank you so much for being a sponsor of our show. All right, guys, we are hot in an election campaign right now. Tariffs are incoming. Unemployment is up. There's a lot of not good things happening, but we're going to try and break them down and see some silver linings with them. But yeah, we're happy you guys are here. Brooke?
Hello.
How you feeling?
I don't feel that well today, so I'm going to let you.
Why? Do you want to tell the audience why? Brooke had some fun last night.
Party. You got to have fun.
Yeah.
Canada's lacking fun.
Yeah, we do need some fun.
We were doing, the traditional songs like YMCA and those kind of things, and I was dancing with my friends.
You had some fun.
I should.
As you should.
As I should.
I agree.
As everybody should. You cannot be in a bad mood if you're doing the YMCA dance with your friends. I'm sorry.
I think people need to adopt.
All of Canada did YMCA dance at the same time.
We would not be fighting.
We would not be fighting.
Speaking of fighting, and I love your attitude right now because I was on Twitter last night and a conservative woman was outside a Mark Carney rally.
Okay.
Did you see this video?
No.
These two ladies must be in their 60s. Full on brawl. Like they fought.
Like fist fight.
Yeah, they were throwing punches. Like it was horrible to watch. Just horrible. I know I'm laughing, but
playing YMCA,
exactly.
That heals people.
We need more of that in this world. Yeah. So
no way.
Anyways, we had a video go pretty viral last week on Instagram, and it talked about the GDP per capita. And these numbers were from the IMF, and then I had all these people from, I would say, more the left-leaning crowd saying that I was paid by Pierre Poilievre. They said that I was a Russian propagandist, if I'm saying that right. And I can assure you none of those things are true. The only people that have paid us for this show is Chexy, who is our sponsor. But yeah, we are not affiliated with any political party. We just have our own views, unlike the CBC and CTV, who get billions of dollars from the Liberal government. I'm just throwing that out there. We built this show ourselves.
Yeah.
And the numbers are true. They're from the IMF. They're not from me.
People thought that you were paid to put. What was said in that video? I know we put it.
That GDP per capita grew 0.5% over the last 10 years. Yeah. I checked with Richard Diaz, who is on the Looney Hour, and he's like the stats guy. And me and him had an interview a while back, and he ran the numbers, put in a chart. He's like, no, it's true. And here I would send people the link, right? The people that said no, I would send them the link. I'd be like, I can email you. Yeah, they thought I was lying.
They thought that GDP grew more than that?
Basically, yeah. They said that my numbers were fake, and then they would pull from other stats and XYZ. I think anecdotally, you don't even need to look at those numbers to know that Canada has lagged economic growth over the last decade.
Feel it.
But he even said, people would go as far to say, so I'd send them the numbers in the comments, and they would go as far to say, because it was 2014 to 2024, and then 2014, Harper was in power. So they would say that, what about Harper in the first bit of those numbers? I'd be like, we're not talking about that.
I never read the comments, so it's funny because sometimes I see you go back and forth, and
sometimes I respond to some people, and I'm pretty.
Can't help yourself.
I'm for the most part, I'm so kind. Like some people will be like, I want to vote for Carney. Like he has an economic background, and I say, good for you. Like that's fine. I'm going to vote Pierre. Or for my local MP who's a conservative. And like, you vote for whoever you want. Like, I don't know why you have to. Yeah. People were saying that I was a 40-year-old.
Oh, they think
fake,
you're 40 now.
Yeah, fake influencer. I was like, okay, I'm a little offended at 40 because I'm only 31. I hope I don't look 40.
You definitely don't look 40. No way. So people got mean.
People, the radical left and obviously the radical right are very malicious and mean people. And we need to live in a world where if someone has a different view than you, someone has a different opinion than you on economics, on social issues, that's okay. We still have to coexist with each other. So
people like identify with their belief systems, especially their political beliefs these days, I find. So
it's insane.
If somebody has a differing opinion than them, it's threatening their entire belief system and their like even sense of identity because there's so many opposing data, opposing beliefs.
You can make the data look what you want it to look like. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's where
they're coming at me. Fair. Like come at me, say whatever you want. But like people would say that, I don't know, some lady, it's always like the older ladies who are just so.
Was it the older ladies?
Yeah, it's just so rude. And like one lady.
The older ladies like you.
Why no? One lady said that that if we vote for conservative, we support World War II. World War II was when Hitler basically did the mass extinction of people. And I said, are you really comparing Pierre Poilievre
To
to
Hitler.
And she said, yes, you need to get educated. And that's what I always get. You're uneducated. I have a bachelor degree from Western University, not a bad degree. I'm pretty sure I'm decently educated, but anyways, I don't need to defend my record. But
That's crazy. I didn't see those
go ahead.
comments.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. People
I'll
are
have to read up on them.
mean. Okay, let me start here. So Canada's unemployment data just came out. So it wasn't good. We've had some pretty good data over the last couple of years, but this time the latest report of Canada's unemployment rate based on data from Statistics Canada labor force survey for March 2025 showed the unemployment rate rose to 6.7%. This marks a slight increase of 0.1 percentage points from the February 6.6%. The economy actually lost 33,000 jobs in March, the largest monthly decline since January of 2022. This drop was driven by a significant loss of 62,000 full-time jobs, partly offset by a gain of 29,000 part-time positions. So what we're seeing is full-time positions actually go down. So we're seeing layoffs from a lot of companies. The uptick in unemployment reflects a cooling labor market with economic uncertainty, your favorite word, partly linked to U.S. tariff threats, contributing to the slowdown. This is a reversal from earlier gains, such as the 91,000 jobs added in December 2024 and 76,000 in January of 2025, indicating a shift in momentum as of March 2025. So what we really always saw from the economic data, though, was a lot of public sector jobs.
Yes.
We always saw that. You kind of look more into it, and then
rising.
you'd notice the private sector stop growing. So then when the public sector stops growing, because they added so many jobs, there's only so many jobs you can add in the public sector. Then you notice this slowdown. So I think that's kind of partially what we're seeing. And then part-time jobs, what are part-time jobs? Maybe some retail stores, Uber, driving Uber Eats, or some sort of food delivery maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of part-time jobs that are in the private sector that, pay a lot. It may be just, people having second jobs and stuff like that. So
100%. Well, I know a handful of people that are self-employed or freelancers now that I'm sure feel unemployed, or maybe are tapping into EI because not a lot of people have money to hire these freelancers. That a couple of my media people used to be swamped with listing videos, even for real estate agents, like hiring, like doing the things, right? Even like the stagers, real estate agents don't want to spend money. So I even talk to contacts that I'm so used to using, but with the slowdown of the real estate market trickles the slowdown of the people that help get the listings out, even just that sector alone, because I obviously am a realtor, so I see it day to day, but I can only imagine how many other industries it trickles down with a slow market. All the people that help create a fast-paced market will also be slow, so it's a trickle-down effect.
Yeah, that's a good point, because so much of our GDP is in real estate, so a lot of job creation or like business creation can come from real estate. Like if you think of a transaction, there's, you have the real estate fees, and you have the lawyer gets paid, the stager gets paid,
Appraisers.
The videographer gets paid, the appraiser,
Cleaners
the bank,
even.
Cleaners. Yeah, there's a lot of trickle down.
Contractors, handymen, landscapers, people that come in and fix if there's something wrong in an inspection, a roofer, a plumber, an electrician. Like it does create a lot.
You're right. When those slow down, we're going to notice a big slowdown in the economy, because we have not focused on resource resource building and stuff. Like, now all of a sudden pipelines are like the buzzword. Now everybody wants them, or they want us to tap into our resource because of what's happened with the US. And, Pierre, I'll give it to him. He's been saying this before the Trump tariffs. He's been saying we need to unleash energy before that. And Danielle Smith of Alberta has been a big proponent of that. And I understand the other argument. We need to think about the future of our climate and our world. But what really happened and what we saw was that when we stopped selling our energy or using our energy, then other countries with not as strict standards that we have for the environment just up their production.
Yeah, so they make up for the
So they pollute more.
So if we were to just do it in a environmentally
the most
friendly way it can be, it's actually better than if we didn't do it at all, because other countries will make up for it in a worse way than we would use it in.
Yeah, that's what the data shows. Like, this isn't us making conspiracy theories that some people like to say, which I don't understand.
Because I get it. Like, we have to think about the future. Like,
for sure.
It's important to think forward. But
and like we said, if there was a microwave that could come down and give out great energy to everyone, and we didn't have to use things like fossil fuels, and we could actually, if wind turbines actually worked really well, we wouldn't have to rely on other sources. But speaking of the housing market, it feels like this uncertainty has really hurt the spring market that we always see. Like,
we usually see an uptick in spring activity, which I didn't think prices were going to go up this spring. I just thought activity would be stronger. And I knew a lot of sellers that were waiting to sell in the spring. Typically your house shows better in the spring. People are happier when the sun is out, get to show off landscaping, you open your pool, etc. So typically there's more activity, whatever's happening in the economy as a whole, because people still need to buy and sell based on their lives, right? But I haven't seen that uptick, and I think because the election was announced. So it was supposed to be in the fall.
Yeah.
Really, it was going to be in the fall. Now that it's pushed to the end of April 28th, it's going to be. I think that people are just waiting to see what happens. And the closer we get to April 28th, I think the more slowdown it'll be, just because people are, I'm just going to wait.
Their mind is somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm just going to wait. And I was chatting with a friend of mine that works for Bloomberg, and he's putting out an article, and we talk about headlines a lot, and he said, hey, are you noticing that a lot of your buyers are on the sidelines just to see what's going to happen economically or with the election? And asked if I had a buyer to chat with him to help create this article about how the election is slowing down the real estate markets. Everyone's waiting to see what happened. Historically, it didn't really slow down the real estate market at an election. Like it just,
this one's just it's a pivotal one.
Yeah, it's a pivotal one.
Very pivotal.
So I'm like, I have a list of buyers that, you know, are waiting, and I don't fault them for it, because whoever gets in power, like it may change how things go moving forward. Like they obviously have different policies and different, like even, you know, we were talking about the Conservatives are going to put in like you don't have to pay capital gains if you sell an investment property and buy another investment property. I know there's some things that I haven't read up on completely.
Deferral tax, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to pay the tax one day, but it just incentivizes you to move the money.
So if somebody was looking to sell not their primary residence now, I'm sure they're going to be like, well, wait, if that comes into effect, I'm so waiting, because that's a difference of how many thousands of dollars in capital gains. Which is, imagine selling your house now, having to pay capital gains. Now there's a change of power. And then if you had waited a month longer, you would have been able to save the capital gains if you were planning to buy a house after anyways.
100, or you're planning to sell your investment property.
Yeah.
But you know what's an interesting thing is that, you remember how you'd list a property, and then if the seller wasn't getting what they wanted or there wasn't enough traction, they would say, okay, I'm going to rent it out, and then I'm going to wait till next year.
Yeah.
But now with the rent falling, I've noticed, I had a conversation with a client too, that they would rather drop the price because they're going to be cash flow negative. Like they're just like, I'm not going to yield the rent to at minimum cover it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people are trying to navigate the best as possible, but it's really important to have somebody on your side that is educated, because I have a client out in Niagara. Unfortunately, they're going through a divorce. I've actually had a lot of divorce listings lately, which is sad to see, but we navigated and, you know, move forward on a very logical basis, right? And so they bought it, unfortunately, in the peak, and they need to get rid of it because they are splitting assets. And they said, well, and I'm saying this is what it's worth today, right? And they said, okay, let's try for more. So, okay, you know,
I'll have a conversation. Yeah. Do the classic.
This, but
in 2 weeks, we'll have a conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, we're just going to hold it for a year. And it's like, okay, well, it's a vacant property. So let's calculate your holding costs. It costs you $6,000 a month to carry. So that's $72,000. So do we think the market's going to appreciate? What would that translate to in a percentage? Maybe 10%-ish, 72,000. So those carrying costs, I know some is contributing to the pay down of your mortgage, but not a lot. A lot of it goes to interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Depends
so do we
on
think the interest or the market is going to appreciate 10% to allow you to hold on to sell for $100K more next year? But in that year, you've spent 72,000 in carrying the property. So realistically, it's only 30K difference. And is it going to actually appreciate 10%? Probably not. You're probably going to be worse off if you hold it. Realistically, unless we think the market is going to appreciate, where if you hold on to it next year, you will sell for more, because you're going to have to calculate the cost of carrying it, property taxes, utilities, mortgage interest. Like
and you know what's the other side of it? What if the market goes down?
What if the market goes down? Yeah.
I mean, it could go up, but like, that's the thing. Predictions suck. It's just, you don't know where they're going to go.
You got to do the best with what you have today and
make the decision you can, for sure.
I understand why people are waiting to see what happens with the election, because different policies is going to definitely affect people. I think more investment properties will come to the market, especially if this capital gains policy
I think we'll see an uptick
for sure. Like even for myself, like, actually, I just sold my condo and it's supposed to close April 16th. And That is
You could have. Well, isn't that your primary?
actually, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll
Yes,
be
it
okay.
is. Okay, I'll be fine. Actually, I wanted to talk about that, and we can maybe talk about it in another topic
Sure.
as we move forward. But
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was an interesting one because it was a self-represented party.
Oh, okay.
So we can talk about that. But yeah, no, I see it. It's a slow market. Things are still moving. Like still have your normal sales. Clients are moving an hour
Remember the
way to be
listing that I just
closer.
had?
Oh yeah, that one
You
was
kept texting me, "How
crazy.
do you have so many showings?"
What the
Yeah,
hell? All I see is showings. It's all
I
that one
know it was
listing.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
location is a big one too, because no matter what's happening in the economy, there are people that are safeguarded in terms of previous investments, or they bought at the right time, that they're shielded enough, or baby, or money's been passed down. So whether the market appreciates or goes down 10%, 20%, they're shielded. So it's not necessarily the biggest detriment if the market went down 10%, but they got their dream location and they want to be there for 20 years. It doesn't, whatever what's happening now. This is where I want to be. This is my lifestyle. So you see those people. And I think that's why your listing was so great, because it's an awesome location in Oakville.
Yeah, awesome. Look, and you know what? Like, our staging is amazing, but I have to give it to my clients. They have amazing taste. Like, they did so much great.
Oh, it was beautiful. I went
They were
through
just
it.
the type of people who like always upgraded. Like, okay,
Little things.
we're gonna do the
Little
powder
things, the
room,
little
or
things
we're gonna do
that
the
go a long way.
yeah, we're gonna do the built-in shelving. Like, just and then, you know what? I had a couple agents say that was such a beautiful listing. Like, good for you for getting that. And like, I actually like, wow, you actually want me to win. Most of the time in this business, people don't want that. Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, you could tell. And that's so I'm at a listing appointment yesterday, and we were going through a to-do list to get it ready for market. And I had just helped them buy. So they already bought. Long closing. We have clauses to protect ourselves if their sale takes a little bit of extra time. But I was even saying to them, like, hey, we've been in 20 houses lately. Has any other than one presented their house how I want your house to be presented? We're going to do the things that your competition is not doing.
Yeah.
We are going to look different than the direct comparable, that if a buyer had a list of 5 houses that they were going to see in an area in a budget, what else are they seeing as well as ours? And we're going to look the best. And very well, having just been a buyer, that not a lot of people are doing these things. We walked into this one, they ended up offering on it, but we didn't offer a strong offer because it smelled horrible.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I'm making them do these things because I'm like, hey, if a buyer is coming, they're not just coming to see yours. Realistically, a buyer will go to 4 or 5 if they're going on an outing.
For sure.
We're going to be the standout, because it's not even a matter of getting your price anymore. It's a matter of getting a sale. There's a ton of expired listings, a ton of terminated.
Yep. 100%.
So,
You want to pivot into the tariff stuff?
sure.
Yeah. You read that headline. Yeah.
Right. I put out a video too. So, because Liberation Day, he did say no tariffs on Canada. Is this what?
Yeah. It'll talk all about it. Yeah.
On April 2nd, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump announced a sweeping set of reciprocal tariffs aimed at reshaping global trade, introducing a baseline 10% tariff on all imports to the U.S. and higher rates for specific countries. Canada, however, was spared from these new reciprocal tariffs due to existing measures under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which is the USMCA, if you see that abbreviation. A White House fact sheet clarified that Canada remains subject to previously imposed tariffs, 25% on non-USMCA compliant goods and 10% on energy and potash. What's that?
Potash. It's used in
I don't even know what that is.
It's used in farming.
I'm too much of a realtor. Tied to concerns over fentanyl and migration, but no additional levies were added. Trump criticized Canada's trade practices, particularly its dairy supply management system, but maintained exemptions for USMCA compliant goods, including autos, providing some relief. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called the announcement a fundamental shift in global trade, warning of indirect economic impacts on Canada, and promised a deliberate response after meeting with provincial leaders on April 3rd, 2025.
So I've been listening to a lot of American stuff to understand what Trump's doing, and no one's going to understand fully what he's trying to do, but I'm just trying to get a gauge on it. So what I think is going to happen is he basically saying here that there's a 10% tariff on most countries, but he wants reciprocal tariffs. So when he looks at, our dairy industry, like he highlighted, if they buy over a certain amount, like if Canadian companies buy over a certain amount of dairy, there's a huge 200% tariff in there if they buy American dairy. So if you hit a threshold, the only thing really at the top.
Hear that.
Yeah, it's been there for years.
It's already there?
Yeah. There's tariffs there. So like cheese, for example, you can see that it's pretty much maxed out, but then other things aren't quite as much. But cheese is maxed out. So it's like 99% because if you hit the 100, then you got to pay the tariff. So it doesn't even make sense
So
to.
it's maxed at 99.9.
Yeah. So what Trump is saying is he wants reciprocal tariffs. So if you're going to charge us that, we're going to charge you that. But if you drop it, then we'll drop it, sort of thing. So what I think he's going to do is have this like big dog and chony where he has world leaders come in.
Yeah.
And they've dropped their tariffs on the U.S. You know, he looks so great. Look, Trump got us, because that's what he likes. He likes the deal making. He likes the press conferences. But a big thing is that the U.S. has $9 trillion of debt coming up that they have to renew. And you renew that via like treasury bills. So you basically sell these bills out. Investors buy them at a certain percentage point. So what just happened was the rate that investors can get dropped below 4%. So he has to renew. So with the uncertainty that he's created, it's actually dropped the rate down. So the US, when they go to renew trillions of dollars of debt at a lower percentage point, it'll actually help in the long term. Yeah, the overall. I know I'm not in agreement of the tariffs. I'm just trying to understand them as best I can. And that's what I'm understanding is that not only does he want jobs to come back to the U.S., and there's some jobs that'll never come back. It's just the labor's too cheap everywhere. People won't be able to pay that kind of money. But what he's really trying to do, and again, the U.S. brings in about $34 trillion in tax revenue, but they spend $36 trillion.
Okay, so they're still at a deficit.
So they're at a deficit. So they need to make up for it. And I know all the people who hate on Elon Musk, I don't really understand it, but him and Doge, they're cutting the spending. They're cutting the foreign aid.
That's where it needs to come from, cutting the spending.
And then the tariffs can be another revenue source where they're able to increase that 34 trillion, increase that up. Because we need to understand that the US cannot keep spending at the rate they're spending on, because eventually that debt will get so big that to service the debt will take everyone's tax money that they can't pay for anything else. That's basically how companies go bankrupt. There's not enough money to pay for the expenses. Yeah. So what Elon is doing, and not just Elon, Doge, and there's a lot of smart people who are in there who are former Democrats. I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah. They used to be Democrats. I don't think they're like full-on Republicans. They just realize that if the states keep spending money, then there's not going to be a country anymore, and that'll be turmoil for everyone. So the stock market has taken a hit for sure.
I think that was a big reason, if I want to be a little conspiracist over here, is that it's how the big companies stay rich. I think there was a lot of, and this is not on the, like, this is just like my belief. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it in the insider. I think that there are some people that knew that he was going to announce tariffs, knew the stock, now you buy short or sell short, whatever. The stock market crashes. That's where all the companies buy, and then it goes back up.
But you know what he did? In hindsight, he did campaign on tariffs. Like he said, I'm going, and like,
remember he said it on Joe Rogan.
And then you see Warren Buffett, who's sitting in all this cash, and you're like, why is he like, the market's going to go up? It's Trump. But then like you kind of look back and you're like, oh, it might have been safer to sit in something like gold. And wait and have cash on hand to buy companies at a discount like Warren always does. But that's why he's a genius and I'm not. So
interesting. I don't understand why 25% tariff on auto cars is still in question, because it's been how long has it been that there's been, like, the automotive industry with the States and Canada, parts go back and forth. Like, a car isn't built just with in one.
It's all three countries. Mexico too, back and forth. Yeah.
And then back and then back and then back. So to unravel that would take, I don't think it could happen, because to unravel the existing automotive industry trade agreements that they've had for the last however many, like
many years,
many years, would take so long. It's almost like the complications of adding tariffs, and when do tariffs get added, and what, because some parts are made in the States and obviously some aren't, and then it goes back and forth. Like, it's just, I don't know how that's going to work, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know either. Of how many times a car goes back and forth over the border before the car's complete.
100%.
Where do you draw the line? I don't know. And then parts are made half in one country, half in the other. What has tariffs? It's all.
Yeah, I think that being a car, like, I know a lot of the big car companies went to him and said, we need a break on this, or something along those lines. I'm obviously butchering it a little bit, but it is good though that, like, I think the silver lining here is that we didn't get hit with a blanket 25% tariff. No. And he basically said, I'm going to wait until after the election to, like, I know Pierre said he wants to have, and Carney said it too, they want to have a sit down and renegotiate the terms. And just so everyone can kind of have a sigh and relief of just knowing that, okay, these tariffs aren't coming, or this is going to be tariffed. So I also saw an interesting article that banks are looking at where you work, and if you're prone
I
to
know
the tariffs, they're
that's
not. I was like, wow, that's like not
that's
discrimination, but it's
yeah.
like
Wow.
I guess they're trying to de-risk
No,
themselves.
I get it, but that's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. So like if you
That's
work in the car industry, and that would be, a lot of the markets where, not in Oakville, but Oakville has the Ford plant. But I think, Windsor has, there's some affordable markets out there where someone could potentially work at an auto company, and say their wife works somewhere else, or vice versa. You could have enough income where you could buy a house. It's,
Oh yeah.
it's not going to be massive or anything like that, but you can buy like a little. I think in Windsor you can buy for 300,000-400,000. I don't know the market very well, so if I'm wrong, then please
No,
don't
totally.
please don't come at me. But yeah, I think that's interesting. But I do think overall it's not a bad thing for Canada. I think it was kind of a good announcement where we
That we
kind
don't
of
have to, yeah.
we kind of just said, oh, so we don't have the blanket
I
tariffs.
didn't think that we're like when he put them in, I was like, I really thought he wasn't going to. I was like, wow, it's really wrong. And then
Yeah.
then he announced this Liberation Day we're not going to. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
I'm not yeah, I was really like, wow, I really believed he wasn't going to do it. So I was shocked. I was like, oh, maybe I have to like.
I think we've hit the peak of everyone talking about it, and
then everybody gets frustrated.
something else will come up,
yes.
and then
Remember,
infeally.
inflation was the buzzword.
Yeah,
then it was
no. Now
tariff
it's tariff is
like,
above word. I know it always just kind of does a cycle.
It changes.
Yeah.
Because people want something to blame things onto. People, I find even when I had conversations about tariffs, had no idea what a tariff was. Like that's the level of people just want something. Tariffs is the reason, right? Or oh my God, tariffs, but they didn't understand what a tariff
exactly
was, or how it affected them personally on a day-to-day basis. It is just a buzzword.
I had to dive into it too a lot too.
Yeah, so did I.
I had to jump into it too because I was like, well, no, the Americans are just going to pay that. And then I was like, I watched this thing on CBC about that. I know it's CBC, but I actually really enjoyed this guy's show. He just quickly talks about what's going on in 10 minutes and gives you all the facts behind it. And then he said, well, no, some Canadian companies will pay the tariff if they think it's short term just to keep that customer. Yeah. So it's not always the country that's forced to pay it. Sometimes the company who wants to keep the customer tries to mitigate their losses and keep the customer.
The U.S. company is the one that would have had to pay the 25% tariff if bought
it from Canada. Yeah.
So what you're saying is the Canadian supplier would have ate that cost so that it wasn't on the American buyer, so that the American buyer didn't source something locally. Mm-hmm. So exactly. It did affect both sides. But I always said it would affect Americans. Like there's some industries where that American buyer couldn't just be like, okay, you know what, now I'm buying from him, right? It's not as easy as that with like years and years and years of intricacies with whatever industry they're in, where it's not as easy as, oh, I'm buying a t-shirt from you. Oh, never mind. There's a tariff. I'm going to go buy from this person. It's not as easy as that, right? So I get why some Canadian suppliers would have wanted to eat that to maintain, especially if they thought it was short term.
Well, the markets don't like it. So that's kind of the analogy that we have right now. I think that the markets are going to bounce back, but let's see what happens.
So you buy stocks. Are you bullish on buying right now? Because it's a lot of things.
I think so, but I'm always of the mindset of like, you should always just dollar cost average into the market because you're never going to time the bottom. You know, when people buy things, they always like buy stuff when it's going up and up and up because they think it's never going to come down. Then it never comes down. Like it's easier just to set once a month buys and then just invest that way into your future. That way you kind of avoid the volatility. Like unless you've done the analysis on the company and you know the company inside and out and you're like, this is such a steal. Like Warren Buffett does. I don't think a lot of us have that kind of time or that skill set to do it. So last thing I want to talk about is Mark Carney's new housing plan that he talked about. Okay. So Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, unveiled a housing plan touted as Canada's most ambitious since World War II. The plan aims to double the pace of home construction to nearly 500,000 homes annually over the next decade. It introduces the Build Canada Homes, a federal agency to develop affordable housing on public lands, providing over $25 billion of financing for innovative prefabricated home builders, and offers $10 billion. Yeah, prefab.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And offers $10 billion in low-cost loans for affordable housing projects. Additional measures including cutting municipal development charges in half for 5 years, offset by federal funds, reducing red tape, and eliminating GST for first-time homebuyers on homes under $1 million. The plan draws inspiration from the post-war housing efforts, emphasizing speed, affordability, and sustainability using Canada's resources like mass timber. So I'm just going to say this right now. the 500,000 new homes,
Where are they going?
they're supposed to go on public land. So
Where's
they're,
that?
so they're going to sell off these public land that Canada owns, and they're going to put housing on there. We've never built even close to that.
I know.
So when we see these projections, I'm going to build this amount of homes, I'm going to build this, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because
is this public housing, like, or is or
yeah. So this is the kind of this is
Okay.
the question. So he never says like you are going to own a home, or I'm going to make homes affordable for you. It seems like it's going to be social housing, owned by rentals owned by the government. So you're not really, how do I say this?
that is going to make homes more expensive. If
Yeah,
there's a lot more
there's
rentals,
less homes for
you can
sale.
rent, but there's less homes. Yeah, for in Toronto, like we need more actual houses that are affordable that people
We need 3-bedroom homes
totally.
with a little backyard. Doesn't have to be insane. Like even wartime bungalows, I like. Even if you put all these wartime bungalows and you attach them all, you just need people to have families and have space to have families, and you don't get that.
If we look at the wartime bungalows, because I always
There's a bunch of them that we sell in Oakville. Yeah,
all over the place. They are on the
it's a
Hamilton
great little
Mansion.
house.
Yeah, but it wasn't like I would like to look at how they were built and what incentives were put in. I guess were taken away, or what complications were put in after that, because there is so many streets of wartime.
A big one. There was I watched one in Vancouver, and it was just like what they did and what they made the process so seamless. Like you can build. They just called it a model home. It's Brooke's fabulous home. You can build that. You got a permit. You're approved in a week or 2 weeks. I can't remember the deadline, but it's very fast, right? You can use this material, and it's the catalog idea. But remember, they introduced that with Sean Fraser, and it hasn't gone anywhere. Like, remember the Housing Accelerator Fund? Yeah. It just feels like empty promises over and over again. But I don't think any political party is going to build all these homes that they promise.
No, they have to rely on the private sector.
You have to. What he's doing here, I agree with. Reducing red tape, eliminating GST, getting rid of those taxes, cutting.
Can I interrupt there? Okay, yeah. Eliminating GST and HST for homes, new built homes under $1 million. That's already in effect. Number one.
Is it in effect? Right
yeah. And then everyone's like, oh, no HST. But it's like, okay, first time buyers that buy resale under $1 million, there's never any HST on that anyways. New homes under $1 million, no GST, HST. If you're a first time buyer, you're moving in. So as the consumer, you're not paying any tax moving in. It's usually the builder or that has to pay a tax when they're building. So in turn, it should reduce the cost for the first time buyer, because the first time buyer wouldn't have had to pay HST anyways if they're moving in. As an investment property right now, if you buy, you pay HST. There's rebate programs already if you're not moving in. But if we're targeting first-time buyers, you're already not paying tax. So are we relying on the builder to reduce the cost?
Yeah, there's a builder who reached out to me. He actually sent me. I need to thank him. He sent me a Monopoly game. But anyways, he's a part of all these builders that said, if you cut these fees, we'll match the cuts, and we'll sell them at that exact discount. You have our word. We'll sign a contract, because he's like, we need to get these houses moving.
What if the market is going up? Is the builder just going to? Because then imagine the bidding wars on it. If the builder is selling it cheaper than what the market is doing because they signed a contract. Well, what if a buyer is giving you over asking? Now what?
Well, I think that's why the pre-construction industry went so crazy, because they could buy a house cheaper than resale, wait those years, let the market do its thing. And now obviously then they had to flip it. They started selling them at a premium versus resale. And then we saw this appraisal disaster.
Right. So it would be pre-sales where the builder is able to offer. But I'm just thinking, if the builder says, okay, I don't have to pay as much tax, so in turn I'm able to offer this for sale for a first-time buyer for less. Because again, already first-time buyers, you don't have to pay HST or GST already on new builds or resale. You don't have to. It's the builder that does. So
HST is included in the
yeah. So are we like this? Hey, like cross our fingers, builder, give the consumer a better price, because you're going to have more profit. You're being taxed less. Or there's some
it's a good point.
That are getting taxed less that are like, well, no, the market states that I can still get X amount. Sweet, my profit just went up. And then fine, because maybe you're incentivized to continue doing it. We do need more housing, but does that help with affordability is my question, because there's that point alone. People are like, oh, no tax. And it's like, there already isn't tax for you as a buyer, right? So it's a lot of media that spins it. It's like, well,
now
you already don't pay tax.
What if a political party came out and said what Foch has said, what we've said, and said, we are going to reduce the demand on home buying and home rentals by reducing the amount of people we let in the country. How do you think young people would hear that? Because it's easier to reduce the immigration numbers than it is to build 500,000 homes. Let's be honest. It's going to take time. Like, we still need to build, but you need to level out the amount of people coming into the country. And it's not even just me saying this because I'm born in Canada. It's not fair for the immigrants as well, as they come here without any credit checks or any job, history that they can kind of show. And then they're competing in the rental market too. Because, we're not just talking about like buying a house. You also need to look at the immigration numbers to the rental prices, because they've gone on the same trajectory, right? So I think what these political parties need to do is, we're going to plan to build X amount of homes, but maybe more in the range that's actually believable. Like, I just don't believe you're going to build 500,000 homes when you've only built like 200 and something thousand has been the record. But if you say, okay, we're going to take the demand side and cool that off, it's going to help the rentals, it's going to help the resale market, because no matter what, a person needs somewhere to live, right? Anyone coming here needs somewhere to live, and they're going to compete in the free market just like everybody else. So I think if a political party actually came out and said that, I don't think you would come off as, oh, this person's, I don't even want to put the word in there because I don't think that's true. But this person's X, Y, and Z because they're saying this or whatever. I don't think that's true. I just think that we
already cut down the numbers, the foreign students, the immigration numbers.
And what are we seeing?
The rental market's come down. The
market's
been slower.
It's not.
It's cooling the demand.
The demand is getting cooled, so we need to continue cooling the demand. And maybe, I know Pierre said he wants more responsible numbers. I think it was 200,000 was more what we were doing for a long time, in the 200s. Obviously, the Liberals bumped that up to 1.2 million for the temporary workers and the students. But now you're seeing colleges struggle because they're not getting that sweet, sweet foreign student money anymore.
Triple the price of what a Canadian would pay.
We're seeing our unemployment numbers go up. So you're going to have those temporary worker visas come to an end, and they're going to probably return back home. So like what we're seeing, and we're seeing prices decline. And it's not just all immigration. Interest rates are also another factor. Economic uncertainty, right? Everyone was buying a second home when rates were so low, and the economics and the numbers made sense. So I'm not just fully blaming this on immigration. I'm just saying, what if a political party actually stopped talking about, I'm going to build, overpromise and underdeliver all these homes, and just said, well, we need to look at other equations as well, like the number of people coming into the country, because that's connected to housing as well. So anyways, just food for thought, right?
Because you look at it, like, I'm just thinking of people in Toronto. Is there ever a world where it's affordable for a first-time buyer? Unfortunately, no. I say no.
Yeah,
no.
Same with Vancouver.
No, right? And
it would take a massive crash for make that happen.
And that would hurt Canada, I think, a lot more, if I'm being honest with you. That's worse.
2/3 of people in Canada own their home.
Everything. That would actually be worse. But then you look at other countries, and I've said this before, you can't buy a house in New York City. You can't. Okay, but there's infrastructure surrounding. Like, you drive an hour out of Toronto and you don't even have service anymore. Yeah. I lose service.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I know it's.
But then if you're building houses out there, affordable housing, are people going out there? But then maybe in the short term, but now you feel like you're the commuting to Toronto. So unless these little cities are being built up, but then you need your tax dollars. Like, how do you create a city? The infrastructure to create a city, the parks, the libraries, the schools, everything that creates a city where you don't need to commute into the neighboring city that's already been built up. Otherwise, these affordable houses, where are you putting them? You're putting them outside of Toronto, where there's literally no service
Well, that's why, when I came to Oakville from Belgium, my dad bought in Oakville because it was cheaper than Toronto. He bought it for like 300,000, and the nicest neighborhood now in Oakville. But he would just take the train every day, and you go to Toronto, and they called Oakville like the sleeping town or something like that, because you just go there to sleep.
The downtown Oakville, south of Lakeshore, there are some pretty cool houses.
Yeah, the old cottages.
Toronto, people's cottages.
But now, with prices, right, and more people that come in, not as many houses they're not building more houses in old Oakville.
No, where are you going to put it?
Yeah, you can't, unless you allow for more development and you change the zoning laws. But NIMBYism is there, so it's never going to happen.
No.
That obviously happens in Toronto areas, but then you have it expand. So then you saw Hamilton prices go up. Then you just drive until you can afford it. What is that saying? Drive until you qualify or something.
Yeah,
and then you saw, and now you're seeing Kitchener and Guelph.
Kitchener is actually a pretty strong market right now.
Cambridge and Guelph, all those areas have seen prices go up because people have to keep looking outside. Okay, I'm willing to drive an hour to work twice a week because I have to work hybrid.
I don't hate the idea of prefab because if I think about it, if I wanted to be like, okay, I'm going to be on board with creating more housing for people rather than I want to make a profit. Like you need to also, the government needs to be like building houses for the idea that it's affordable for people. Because right now, if I'm cutting up a piece of land and building houses rather than condos, then I'm not making much money. If the time I spend building a house and then selling it, realistically, there's not a lot of profit margin there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we saw a lot of condos go up in Toronto, like just whatever can fit so that there is enough profit. So a prefab made house.
It's built in a factory and then delivered? I don't even know. Yeah.
Well, I know there's prefab materials like, roofing, like, yeah, it's built in a factory and then, yeah. That would make things, I would assume, more affordable because the cost of building right now and all of the building code laws and realistically from start to finish building a house, the price per square foot that you're putting into that house and then selling it, there's not a lot of profit margin.
No,
there isn't.
Not. Yeah.
Especially if you're doing it where there's land.
The land is the expensive part, right? Like to build is expensive. Don't get me wrong, but the land, when you have to buy land for $1 million, then you got to build. Like you need to factor all this in, and then you go, okay, who's going to buy this off?
Do you think? Because I don't know if I would like this so much. So how a condo is, you don't own the land, obviously. So land leases where you buy the house, so you have a house, but you don't own the land because of that. Those houses are stupid cheap. You can buy a house in Hamilton for $200,000, but you're on a land lease.
You're on a land lease.
You don't own the land.
It gives you trailer park vibes.
It does. But like, is that a?
I don't know. Maybe that's.
I wouldn't like it.
I don't like it either.
But
you want to own land, like you really do, and it's hard. Obviously, look around us, like things are so expensive, but you do want to own land. So let's see. Like we'll talk about Pierre's policy. He really hasn't come out with like a big housing policy yet. He's come out with many others. I want to make that clear. I've listened to them all, and same with Carney's. So we'll come out with more. And then, so some of the polling, we've talked about this too. I'm going to try and get a pollster on next week. Excellent. I had a conversation with him to understand it more. So he actually has Pierre in a slight lead, and all these polls have Carney as like an outright favorite. It seems like a few of them are different.
I've seen it everywhere.
And then I kind of asked him about it, and he goes, well, I don't want to talk about other pollsters too much because it's not fair, but you have to look at their funding, where they're getting funded from. You have to,
because there's a little bit of psychology. If you think somebody's winning, you automatically like respect him more, right? If Pierre's killing everybody in every poll you see, you almost hop on the train a little bit. I think there's a little bit of that. So if the polling company is funded by one side, it is planting seeds.
It is planting seeds, right? Like everyone's talking about these polling numbers. So why I really reached out to this guy was because I couldn't understand how Pierre was polling in all these people at rallies, like 6,000 people. Like when you look at his rallies, it looks like he's going to see like Diplo or like, some DJ. You're like, this is like, it literally looks like a concert venue. Like he's renting out airport hangars. And I'm like, I don't really understand what's going on. So a little bit, I don't want to dive too deep into it. I want him to come on and talk about it more. But a big thing is that the NDP is losing so much support. Like that the Conservatives aren't losing support. It's that the Liberals gained the on the fence voters, or the people that said, I'm done with Trudeau, I'm going to NDP, because they would never go Conservative. They're gaining those people. What we're seeing is that Pierre's base is diehard.
Oh yeah.
Like they are they are going to
Trump
vote.
diehard.
Yeah. They are going to vote. They are going to show up on voting day. And what you see is the Liberals are not as much diehard. Like they're like, their intention to vote is there, but maybe they won't vote.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is that boomers love Carney.
Yeah.
They want Carney to win. They think that like 20% of them truly believe that Trump wants to annex Canada. And they think that Pierre will be okay with that because they see him as mini Trump.
Right.
It is their opinion. I don't agree. It's their opinion. And then you see us younger people, millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z. Gen Z is a little bit more liberal, but they're changing their tune because of affordability. So you see the younger generation saying, I can't afford anything. These guys have had 10 years in power. I'm done with them. Yeah. Don't care who it's Carney. Doesn't matter
who it is.
Yeah. Affordability is just law. And Pierre has done a really good job on social media of people knowing who he is over the past years and fighting the liberals on that. So yeah, you have the older generation who thinks that Pierre is mini Trump, and you have the younger generation who just wants to be able to have the same life that the older generation had.
Yeah.
So this is what this election will come down to.
Everyone go vote.
Please go vote.
Please vote.
Yeah. Please go vote. Yeah. We'll definitely be posting stories of how you can vote, and I hope to get some more people out there because the Ontario election was just so embarrassing. So, anyways, guys, I think that's a wrap for today. We went on longer than I thought we would. So yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming in. Hopefully, we get that pollster on next week. Send us any questions that you have for him. But yeah, we're gearing up for the election. What are we, the 28th? So we're not too far away. And yeah, we'll try and share as much policies as we can. And yeah, like we want you guys to vote for who you believe in and not take our bias or whatever like that. We're just giving our side of the story and what we want to see. And we respect whatever you vote. So leave the mean comments for somebody else. All right. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Take care.